born. Saturday evening, Father said, you preach on Sunday. I want to see what you have to say about this. And so reflecting on the last few days and coming into the gospel and the epistle reading for today and the hymnography of the church, a pattern that we see over and over again is light coming into darkness. We hear it in the hymnography. We see it as in the light coming into the cave itself. We see it in the journey of the wise man who are following this new bright star through the darkness. And as we are kind of on the other side of this story, we see it in the end. And much like, carefully manicured social media accounts that make everything look glorious and wonderful, on this end of the story, at this time of the year, it's one that is constantly just full of festivities. And last night or yesterday on the way home, I said, what I want to listen to right now? I want to listen to Handel's Messiah, right? Get this triumphalistic, fantastic, just glorious, music, worshiping God for his incarnation, for him indeed bringing light into the darkness to begin the process of reconciliation between God and man, where our relationship had been broken. But again, we're seeing this sort of on the other side. We know the rest of the story. But we have to ask, what did this feel like for Mary and Joseph in the midst of all of this? For it was, it's a pretty dark deal, delivering your new child in a cave. It was, laying in the animal bedding, because that's all there were. And when God announced the coming of the King of Kings initially yesterday, right, we hear this, the angels came to the shepherds, not to the king, not to Herod, but to the humble. And in the darkness of the night where the angels came, they came and expressed gratitude and honor to God for what he had done. And still, it had to be confusing. In fact, if we look at the icon, for the nativity, you can see Joseph sitting at the bottom of the icon, just kind of scratching his head like, what is going on? Because it doesn't make any sense in the big scheme of things, and it had to be overwhelming to be seeing all of these conflicting things of the person that he was betrothed to, and now, the miraculous conception and all of these things. And we want to look at the story and we see the glorious pieces of God incarnate. But it probably didn't feel like that in the midst of it. It was probably really, really confusing. Even today, when the wise men show up with 3 gifts, gold, frankincense, and myrrh, each representing a different aspect of who Christ is. Gold as offering to the king, frankincense indicating his role indeed as high priest forever in the order of Melchizedek, as the entry verse said. But also myrrh for his burial, knowing that he was coming to die. This was planned from the very beginning. From the very beginning, God put the heavens in order to call this out. If y'all haven't seen the wonderful documentary called The Star about what it is the wise men saw and how that worked, I encourage you, look it up. It's amazing. That describes literally what was happening in the heavens, but God knew. And this is his work, and yet he entered into that work not as a conquering king, but as the humblest of children, born in the humblest of circumstances. And I say all of this as a simple way of introduction to what I need to reflect on in this time of the feast. Am I so busy curating my life that I'm afraid to expose the darkness in myself to the light? Is there room in my life for Christ to come? There wasn't room in the palace. In fact, the palace, when they found out that he was here, set out to kill him. We know the rest of the story here. And again, another time of uncertainty where Mary and Joseph have to flee for their lives to Egypt. And in this journey, it's twofold of what I think that if we're doing this right happens. First is we let the light into the darkness of our own lives. We allow for that uncertainty. We allow for that doubt, but at the same time, in faith, we keep going. We keep taking the next step. We keep asking God to reveal to us what's next. Even if that's uprooting our lives and going in different directions and doing all of these other things in faith, despite the uncertainty, despite the darkness. We keep going and we allow that light into our lives. And as that happens in our lives, as our lives are transformed by that light, then indeed we get to begin to become that light in the darkness of others. It's alluding to, what's about to happen at the end of the gospel today. We know the flight to Egypt is about to happen. And if you know the story, the hagiography of the saints of the church, on their way to Egypt, they were met by a band of robbers. They were met by a band of robbers, and one of the robbers saw Christ, and he said, if God himself came to earth, he wouldn't be as beautiful as this child seeing Christ. And the robbers left him alone. And the tradition of the church says that very robber was the thief who was on Christ's right at his crucifixion. That as we, despite the darkness that we have, that as we receive the light, we can begin to share that and bring it into the darkness around us, that it begins to impact that. And as a result, bit by bit, one corner of darkness at a time, the light comes in and transforms the world. And the whole story is glorious. That Christ has come incarnate to cast out darkness. But that work throughout the life of Christ and throughout each of our lives is done one little dark cave at a time. Let us not lose heart in that journey. Let us be reminded that indeed we do know the rest of the story. Let us not be discouraged in those times of doubt and uncertainty that we can see on Joseph's face in the icon. But continue to move forward in faith so that as we go on that journey first, God brings his light to us. And then we can, as that darkness in various ways encounter us, we can bring that light along with us as we go. This is the journey. This is the beginning of our salvation. Christ is born.
Glorify him.